What's going on, fam? We have another fun workout planned today. For today, we have a 14-minute EMOM, and what we're going to do is 3 different exercises. All you are going to need is 1 kettlebell. For the ladies, if you are brand new to kettlebell training or you consider yourself a beginner, I would highly suggest using an 8 kilogram or a 12 kilogram, which is about 18 pounds or 26 pounds. For the gentlemen, if you are brand new to kettlebell training, what I would suggest using is a 12 kilogram or a 16 kilogram, which is 26 pounds or 35 pounds respectively. For those of you who have a little more kettlebell experience, let's say you've been at it for a while, maybe you got a good strength base. Ladies, you could jump up to a 16 kilogram, which is 35 pounds. Gentlemen, you could use a 20 or 24 kilogram, which is, 44 pounds to 53. And that gives you an idea of where you should be set for this. Now let's go ahead and dive into the workout in and of itself and how this breaks down. For today's workout, we're going to be performing 3 different exercises in an every minute on the minute format. It's going to be 14 minutes in duration. And for the odd minutes, we're going to be using our left side of our body. For the even minutes, we're going to be using the right hand side of our body. Here's how it works. We're going to do 5, starting with our left hand kettlebell cleans. As soon as you finish 5 kettlebell cleans here, you're going to go straight into 4 total front rack step back lunges. That means 2 per leg here. As soon as you hit 4 total, you're then going to keep the kettlebell front racked and press it overhead 3 times. Now, once you've completed that, you have the remainder of the minute for rest. And once the clock beeps, we'll do the exact same thing on the other side. So go ahead, grab your kettlebell, get ready. If you haven't already warmed up, please make sure you do so, and we will see you here. All right, fam, 10-second countdown is coming. 5 kettlebell cleans to start. Straight into 4 front rack step back lunges. Right into 3 overhead presses. All right, so first things first on this one here. I want to make a quick note on the kettlebell cleans because it's very common when people first start this movement to feel some discomfort in the back of the forearm. That's often because they're hanging onto the kettlebell handle too tight and that kettlebell is pivoting over the top and it bangs them in the back of the forearm. What we want to do is transition from the root of the finger to the heel of the palm so that handle sits across the palm at a 45-degree angle like this. If you make that happen, that'll help eliminate that bang of the forearm. Remember to switch hands here for the next minute. We're going to be starting here shortly. Now, what I was talking about as far as that hand positioning of the kettlebell and having that handle sitting across the palm at a 45-degree angle, that also applies for the front rack position in your single arm front rack step back lunge, as well as your single arm overhead press. So when you go to catch your clean here, make sure you get that hand all the way through here. You can see how the horn's resting at the outside edge of the forearm. And this is the same position that we use for that single arm overhead press. So getting that mastered in that kettlebell clean is key because it will make the rest of this flow much more smoothly. Whew, I talked right through the rest period, fam. All right, so now, one thing I want to point out when you're doing that single arm overhead press is making sure that you're actually rotating through the shoulder. So when we go to do a press, we want to think about as soon as our hand hits forehead height here, we want to swing that elbow outward. When we swing that elbow out slightly to the side, what we end up with is our palm facing forward, and that same rotation is going to be on the same way back down, so we end up finishing in that rack position, so our thumb is pointing towards our shoulder here. right, another round down. This minute here, I'm gonna go ahead, try not to talk so much to catch my breath. This is where things should start to heat up a little bit. One quick note, if you do find yourself getting fatigued and 5, 4, 3 is too much for you, remember you can always modify this for your ability level. So if you want to do 3, 3, 3, that's totally cool too. One thing I want to mention on lunges, I know lunges can be a really difficult movement for some. If you find this is something that's challenging for you, you're not able to get full depth and touch your knee to the ground, please feel free to modify this to something like a single arm front squat, where you rack it up here, just perform a squat instead of the lunge motion. That's totally cool to do. Quick note I wanted to make on that single arm overhead press, by the way. So a lot of times when people are first starting with the kettlebell, they'll end up taking their elbow out to the side like this and having the body of the bell, this big round part here, kind of rest on top of the shoulder for the press. I actually want to see that elbow come down and in towards the rib cage here, so your fist is right at the center point of your collarbone, like so, in that front rack position for every single rep of every single press. So it should finish here. We should start here every time with the elbow down nice and low. Did an extra press on that one. It's feeling so good. All right, one quick thing I wanted to mention on the kettlebell clean. This is really important, especially when we start getting towards the halfway point here, so when fatigue really starts to set in. Oftentimes what I'll notice is that folks will start to miss the connection between their forearm and the hip. Now that connection is when we're actually dropping that kettlebell down from the top, waiting for the forearm to touch before sending the hips back. I'll explain more here in the next minute. Okay, so what I was referring to as far as that connection went, a lot of times what folks will miss is as soon as they drop the kettlebell from the top, they'll start sending their hips back. When they send their hips back early, there's no connection between the forearm and the hip. What we're trying to do with this kettlebell clean movement is generate the power from our hips into our forearm. If they're not connected, we have to muscle it a whole bunch with our arm, not to mention your hand dips down below your knee and ends up putting unnecessary strain on your low back. Think about keeping that hand above the knee, which will happen if your forearm touches your hip first here. All right, another one down. Now, if you're still having a hard time with that flop over the top on the clean, and your forearms are just feeling too beat up, that Gabe, I'm not sure if I can keep going with the kettlebell cleans, you can also modify this to something like a kettlebell gunslinger. And all we do is, instead of having the kettlebell rotate around our wrist, is we end up doing that same hinge pattern, but we just pull the kettlebell towards the hip, like this here. So we end up pulling it towards the hip at the top, and you gently press it down for the next rep. This is an acceptable modification for a clean if your forearm's bothering you. All right, we're getting close, fam. That is 10 minutes down. 4 more to go. Now would be a great time to sip on a little water if you have it. I don't know about you, but I'm starting to feel it a little bit. Might notice I'm getting quieter. All right, another round down. So really quickly on your kettlebell lunges, one thing that's very common as we get fatigued is we start to lose our balance, right? We want to maintain this upright torso position every time we're doing a lunge. So one thing that's really helpful is to pay attention to the width of your stance. A lot of times folks will treat it like a tightrope where they get their feet together here, and it makes it really difficult to kneel down. It's kind of wobbly. Think about having your feet on railroad tracks instead, roughly shoulder width when you lunge out. This will help significantly with the balance for you. Down to our final couple of minutes here. Have about 15 seconds. All right, we have 13 down, 1 to go. Last round, let's get it. Before we dive into this last round here, remember, we're trying to keep nice and controlled on our form here. Make sure your cleans are nice and smooth, you're getting that rotation. Try to avoid that flop. If your forearms are beat up, remember you can always do that gunslinger variation on the lunges. Think about making sure your feet are on tracks instead of the tightrope. Make sure that your hips and shoulders are in a straight line here on that press. Make sure that rib cage is pulled down, glute squeeze nice and tight. Last round. And just like that, that concludes another workout. With that said, if you enjoyed this one, I want you to know there's plenty more where that one came from inside of our Kettlebell Core Accelerator, which is our workout subscription. We deliver 3 fresh workouts with the kettlebell every single week directly to you through the Trainerize app. And these aren't just random workouts either. These are workouts that have a very clear progression to them. There's increases in sets, in reps, in intensity, making sure that your workouts actually progress with you as you increase your fitness levels. And if this sounds like something that is of interest to you, right now you can try all of this for just $1. Links in the description below for our Kettlebell Core Accelerator. Check it out. We'll see you on the other side. Cannot wait to see you in there.